Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Western Conference Elitists. I know it's been a while, but we've been working on some things in the background. So today I want to start a new series where we're trying to be more analytically driven in our basketball analysis. And I want to show you guys a tool that we built to help people like ourselves become more objective in our thinking. Because we realized a lot of basketball thinking is still storyline dependent, and we want to just kind of remove ourselves from that and think objectively. So here we have a page. I'm going to pull up a guy like Luka Dončić, for example. We have a page that we call Basketball Savant. And the way it works is every hand-picked stat is on a percentile basis, which can be sorted by season compared to the league or position. You can set a filter so that you only include certain minutes per game, guys, and you can also decide to have stats rolling or not. At the bottom here, we have percent matches in their profile based on the statistical profile. So if you go down this is going to break down really what a player is on an underlying basis. Every stat is normalized, so it's not necessarily per game. It's more, in general, it's more per 75, except for stats like free throws, where the volume matters across a game. And every stat, if you click on it, let's say you don't know what a stat means or how to think of it, you just click on that stat and it'll explain it. So what is a usage percentage? It's the share of team possessions he personally ends. So basically, it's how many possessions end with this player having an action. So that's usage percentage. Luka, famously a 99th percentile usage guy. So very important. And then from this, you kind of learn what stats move together and which ones don't. And which ones are indicators, leading indicators, and which ones are lagging indicators. So, for example, points per 75, that is a output stat. But let's say a guy has super high usage percentage, and here's our efficiency stat, points per possession, tracked by synergy, right? If they have really high usage and really high expected points per possession, then probably in the long run, their points per 75 is going to go up. Another example is look at potential assists versus assist percentage. So that's kind of how we're trying to compete or learn from baseball and their expected analytics. So what I want to do is just go through a couple guys whose names have been in the headlines this week and just walk through their profile and see if we can notice anything interesting. So the first one that everyone knows is going crazy right now is LeBron James. He is still around, still doing his thing. So if we look at what can a current version of LeBron James do for their team. So this is this past year. So as we can see, his matchup difficulty tends to be low. So it's not like he's going out there and locking anyone up anymore. He's being hidden a little bit on lower matchups, and even then, they're playing pretty well against him. But where he makes up for it is in steals and blocks and rebounds. So he's playing less active assignments, but he's still trying to stay active in ways that help the team. Offensively, all the efficiency numbers have come down pretty substantially. I'm assuming if we go back to some of his other years, they're pretty red, towards top of the league. So, as you would expect, as his age keeps climbing into the 40s, his efficiency is gonna take some hits. Now, there's one thing here that I really need to point out is the assist percentage. This guy is always making the right play. It lines up with his potential assists, high usage. He's going to get guys in the right spot. So think of him as kind of a super pure point guard nowadays, which is crazy because we're talking about a massive 6'9", 40-year-old LeBron James. But he's kind of in his Chris Paul era, but he also finds plenty of ways to score. And the other thing to note is that his on-off numbers are positive. So the teams are better when he plays. So he's going to be a huge get for wherever he goes, especially with the way he fits in with his assist percentage. The next one I want to look at is today I was reading about Klay Thompson. Apparently the Mavs are not trying to buy him out, and they think that they'll get something for him. So let's look at Klay. So here on Klay, his profile, there's some outliers. Another thing to highlight here is when a bar is shaded gray like this, it's below the statistical stabilization threshold, and every stat has a different one. So if it's shaded, it means basically low sample. So if we're going to look at Klay here, there's a couple of reasons that a team may be interested in. In his peak years, something like this, matchup difficulty probably wouldn't have been low. It probably would have been pretty high. And I'm going to take a random guess. Oops, this is a bad choice. But yeah, here we are, 2017-18 season. He's taking on elite matchups, and they're shooting worse against him than what they do normally. Efficiencies are all beautiful. Now, let's look at current day Klay. He's locking up worse defenders, worse offensive players. He's not getting any activity off the ball between steals and deflections, and he's getting half a block a game, which is pretty surprising, but this percentile is against other guards, remember. So a guy like Derek White is probably 99th percentile. Now, there's one thing. If you want Klay Thompson, it's to do one thing. It's to shoot threes. So here we can look at our three-point stats, three-point percentage and three-pointer attempts per game. Obviously, we got some red. The efficiency is going to go down as the attempts go up. It's just kind of how it works. So those are both elite figures still, even in his ripe age of 36 years old. So, but there's one more stat I want to highlight, which is actually how this all started. I was building this stat, and I realized that the NBA actually created it this year. Here we have off-ball gravity. So this is basically how much the defense is going to shade towards that player when he's off the ball. So if we want to surround a high-usage alpha guy with guys who can impact the play without having the ball, might be our most important stat, along with defense. But off-ball gravity is basically how much space can you buy your teammates, right? Even without the ball, defenses are guarding Klay as tightly as possible. Whereas other players, they could have a negative off-ball gravity, which means they're getting left. So some players, it's not tracked well because it's so new. Let's see if a guy like Rudy Gobert, first percentile off-ball gravity. So that is just the spacing around him when he's on the court. His impact on spacing is a negative 8.8, which is first percentile. And we'll go back to Klay just to kind of show that one more time. 96th percentile. So he's a little bit of a matchup issue defensively, where he has to guard not a great player, but maybe there's some ability to scale up with these good field goal percentage allowed numbers. But overall, he's coming in to do one thing, and it's to take those shots. The next one I want to look at is new LA Laker, Walker Kessler. Probably makes sense to look at him from last year, because as you can see this year, he got injured pretty early, shoulder issue, and everything is low sample. So it's not useful. Still see a lot of red, though. So let's look at last year. The 3 points, he didn't shoot enough to have a big enough sample to draw conclusions. He's a low points, low assists, low potential assists, low usage guy. Now, low usage and stuff like that is not always a negative, because remember, he's playing next to Luka Dončić. So who would you rather get the usage, him or Luka? So we can almost ignore those. Off-ball gravity makes sense. He doesn't really have one. But what's important here is going to be the 2-point percentage is going to be massive, the efficiency, so he doesn't take away from their elite players, and the defense. Positionally, he has elite matchup difficulty. He has elite numbers at the rim defensively. He has even good overall numbers, factoring in guarding in space and things like that. Low steals and deflections, it makes sense. He's a big man. He's more vertical. but the blocks are elite, and that's kind of the thing that you want to have with your defensive anchor. Um, the other thing that I want to add next, something interesting that I think could be huge contextually for a guy like Walker Kessler, so stay tuned, is some kind of lob accuracy threat. So how good are you at catching lobs? What's your lobs caught over expected or below? And then similarly for point guards, we should have a lob throwing accuracy. So this is Walker Kessler, expecting him to have huge impact on the Lakers this year, maybe without putting up ridiculous points and assist numbers, more so through blocks and rebounds. I forgot to even notice the 96th percentile offensive rebounding percentage. Absolutely massive. One more guy I want to look at, just because he was in the headlines this week. I want to start doing this where we go through basically every player whose name was mentioned in the media this week for any reason, and we just get educated on their profiles. So this is as much for me as for anyone else. So here we look at Ziaire Williams. I saw he went to the Lakers. So let's see what their front office is looking at. On the left side, we have a lot of middle of the pack offensive output numbers. So he's a good free throw shooter, basically. He's decent at getting attempts up, and he's slightly above league average, which is 33%. But for his position, he's actually 41st percentile, so he's not even a good shooter for his position. Now, points, assist percentage is a huge red flag for me, especially for guards. It's perfectly in line with the potential assists, so it doesn't seem like he's just getting unlucky. But I think what the Lakers are seeing right now is they said that they want to rebuild the Mavericks that Luka led to the finals and the Western Conference Finals. So maybe what they're looking at here is looking at deflections and steals. So they see a high, efficient defensive playmaker who can just buy guys like Luka and Reeves and Kessler more offensive possessions. There's also matchup difficulty is high for his position. So maybe if he scales back, maybe if he plays against not necessarily the second best player on the team, but the third, maybe these numbers in his opponent's field goal percentage on matchups and his rim defense, maybe those will go up against slightly worse players. But we'll see. I'm excited to follow and see how much this stuff sticks. And yeah, welcome to Basketball Savant, the Western Conference Elitists websites. Let us know any thoughts, comments, feedback. We're always listening. And catch you in the next one. Peace.